Do it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Burt Whitlow, and I'm on the Break It Down show with Pete Turner.
Yeah, I love it. Um, so one of the things that's cool about what we get to do tonight is it's very rare that counterintelligence people get together and talk openly on like a live show about what we do, what we did, how we do it, and everything. And I love
Unless
that
you're at a bar
you
drinking
willing.
beer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we do belong in a bar drinking beers. One of the things that as I've explored our job and talked to the people that have done things like it, to include like Joe Pistone, the guy who was Donnie Brasco's guy, right? Like
Right,
these are jobs that are akin, and you start to get a vibe for things. And being excellent at this job is in. I'm talking just Army CI now. It's very rare to be able to say this person is elite at this. There are absolutely people that are, but we
absolutely.
don't identify them. We certainly don't send them to schools. We don't say, "Hey, please stay in the army." We just, I've left the army 3 times, right? Regular army, reserves, and DA, right?
Yep.
3 times, and I'm a really, really good asset. I'm good at this thing, so I'm trying to figure out how we build better collectors more reliably so that we can identify the really great people and invest in them and then figure out how to get other people up over the line to what greatness is.
Right. Well, a lot of the collectors, it starts, as you know, Pete, a counterintelligence guy, it all starts with personality, right? You got to find that person with that right personality that can interact with people, talk with them, make them feel comfortable, at ease, and get them to provide you the information that you're looking for.
Mm.
That's step one, right? Got to be a
Yeah.
car salesman. Find the person, and then once you find that person that has the right mentality, then you start doing their training, mentoring, coaching, teaching, and then getting them to school. They 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 need to learn how to. A good CI person needs to know how to do analytical work, right? You have to do your own analytical work. So 5 to 10% is probably analytical stuff that the CI guy has to do. Looking at the situation, analyzing it, and then determining which way you're going to go for the collection piece of that, right? And then you get to the school. How do you handle a source?
Right.
Um, what do you look for in a source? Um, their placement, their access, and things like that. So you got to start at the bottom and give them a good baseline, and then get them out into an environment where they are being taught by a senior guy or somebody that's done source operations for many, many years, and then get them into the repetition. First, it's right seat, left seat, right? Here, I'm going to show you how it's done. Let me go out. We're going to go talk to this person. These are our targets that we want to collect when we're talking to them. This is how we're going to do it, and then watch them do it a couple times, and then put them in the driver's seat. Let them go out, develop their outline on how they're going to run their meeting, see how they do, critique, and then do it
Mm.
again. It's this repetition is built. That's how you build a CI guy that's worth their weight in gold, right? It's repetition, repetition. You just can't send them out there for a year, put them on a shelf for 3 years, and expect them to go out there and do it because everything's evolving, right?
Yeah.
Even if back when we went to school, back in the day when we went to SIFSO, things have evolved since then. Since you go to the school, so you got to get out there and do that repetition. As nothing
So
better than that.
the I'm going to go back, and so when you identify that person that has that knack for communicating with people, that's probably you're going to be your field agent. You have other people that are capable. Like, look, I can do analysis, but it's real hasty analysis. I don't love it. I don't want to
Absolutely.
sit there and right. And so I want to do shots with the mayor. And that's
Yeah.
where you want me, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay to find the people that are good at analysis, and then the guys that are like, I don't really want to go outside. I just want to plan ops, right? They have like these 3 different areas. When do you identify these people? And is it? I mean, look, you don't get a green beret without going through a whole battery of mental tests, right? And to know who
Right.
you are.
Well, the problem is, well, the way you identify it is as the schoolhouse is churning out the agents, and they're coming to the field brand new, and they're coming on their probationary period to learn the job. That's where
Mhm.
it's imperative where you watch them, and see how they interact, see how they conduct an interview, see how they just do a simple tarp reef. That's how then you get a knack, then you look at them, say, this person has it, or they have the potential, and then you start giving them more complex situations to do from a CI standpoint, from a investigation, um, source operation, things like see how they handle it. And when I'm talking, you have to be an analyst as a CI guy. I'm not talking like I'm not saying we have to be.
Right.
We're not pros. We just have to have enough knowledge to plan our operations to get it moving in the right direction, and then we get the analysts involved, and then we can refine the mission as we move forward.
The early identification of personality type, that is great. If you identify someone, so you got a young Pete, you got a young Burt. These guys
Yeah.
are, they're physical enough to handle the job of being with an infantry unit. But I need to get these guys savvy on how to go to that. Look, so our training ground is Huachuca, right? So
Right.
I need to get these guys in Nogales to see how they operate. I need to get them over the border into other places and just have them talk to people and get to know that. How long, if you're going to train someone on that skill, is that at Huachuca that you do that? Is that a secondary TAC unit collector skill? Where does someone start to develop that capacity and get guided, like one-on-one, like a CIFSO course,
Yeah.
but like not even threat based, just how do you talk to people?
Uh, it's when you get. Well, we used to do simple back in the day. My mentors, after leaving the 165th and going there, they would send me to a place, restaurant, someplace, and give me a task list,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I would have to come back and brief how I obtained the information.
Right.
So it's practice. It's repetition, Pete. That's the only way you can build on your skills is actually going out and doing it. And from a Kona standpoint, we have the ability to run collection in the States as well. We cover an agent program, but you still have to learn how to talk to people, how to
Right.
formulate your questions, how to get that information that you need without alarming anybody. Like, are we in trouble? Are we going to die or something? Is there somebody targeting me? But you have to do it in a way where it's non-alerting, but still get what you need out of the person that you're trying to get, or what information you need to do your job. But repetition is the number one, Pete. There's no other way. You can teach anybody in school, and unless you go out and exercise it, I can look good on paper. I can look good in tests. I can look good in a controlled environment. But once you get to the field and the bullets start flying, can you do it then?
The our job is pretty damn dangerous, man. Like
Yeah.
we're trying to go into we're talking TAC human here, right? So
Yeah.
tactical human intelligence gathering, for people who don't know the acronyms. So we're going to send Pete and Bert out to go collect in an area that is maybe, look, maybe it's permissive. Maybe you can walk around without a lot of body armor on. Maybe not. Maybe there's IEDs every day. Maybe there's gunfights every 2 or 3 missions, right? So how do you build someone who can withstand that kind of physical stress, plus the stress of like, hey, we're doing 36-hour days until further notice, and you're just like taking naps and drinking energy drinks. How do you discover that person too?
It's until the bullets start flying, it's hard, right? You can
Hmm.
in those contained environments, you know as a CI guy, or just an instructor or mentor, you can differentiate a person that can handle stress and probably can't handle stress. And how you do that is, if you're in a training environment, you gotta work them 12, 14-hour days. You have to stress them out, right? You know, make them do 5 different tasks, knowing they're going to fail one, and see how they react. And it's just like infantry, right? They go through drills and drills and drills. And I think sometimes our training's a little too soft, and we
Mm.
need to get a little bit more creative and make it more realistic in our training environments. You know, Wachuca is fat, dumb, and happy most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's not the all-stars going there. I mean, the fact that I went and became a CIFSO instructor after running sources in Bosnia, that was not by design, but it should have
Right.
been. They should have been
Yes.
like, "Hey, who ran sources there? Oh, Pete and Greg ran. So I don't know who else ran, but these guys had actual recruited
Right.
sources. Let's have these guys come." But we don't do that, so we don't have that standard, and we don't. From my experience, when you see people, they are not prepared for the job. Like
No.
legitimately, and this is a long time ago, 20 years ago, but this was the Iraq War. They did a turbo reserve class where they
Hmm.
jammed counterintelligence in about 6 weeks via video teleconference and then deployed those people. So, like, I want to
Shambles.
get away from that, right? Like, how do we get miles in front of that so that your job is counterintelligence? Do we limit it? Do we say, hey, you're going to be a TAC HUMINT guy in your career? Maybe you can branch over later on or something, but we need you to be not in the field all the time, but we need you to be able to go to a foreign country, and just go out and spend 3 months, or do you just augment all soft missions with a junior and a senior TAC HUMINT guy to go out, and that's where you get your reps? How do you get your reps in a way that matters?
That's a tough situation, and I think the best way to do it is in a tactical unit like FORSCOM or like the 165th. We were put away in like a fire hose, right? Break in case of
Right.
emergency. And I think we got to get away from that mentality. You have to get these people if they're not doing overseas work, they need to get to a field office, get those repetitions. Again,
Mm,
talking to people. If it's in a tactical environment or if it's in a strategic environment, talking to people is the same. It doesn't change. It's just the dangers level increases or decreases when you're doing that. But I think that's the best way. Get these guys out of these units where they're in the motor pool or doing head count at a mess hall and putting them into offices where they're doing their job on a daily basis. And once you do that, they get the repetitions down, and you can send them training. We can go, you can go to investigations courses, you can go to interviewing courses, um, surveillance courses, surveillance detection route courses. You can get all this training instead of sitting in a motor pool, checking the oil on a Humvee or counting how many
right.
heads are coming through the dining facility.
Yeah. The thought about these training courses, right? You're naming them, and you're naming a lot of strategic focus courses. And this is not me hitting on you. It's just saying, do we have the right tactical courses? Do we have something that's comparable to what special operations has? Like, here's the dive course, here's the mountain master course, here's the snow course, do we have what we need to create tactical people in terms of secondary courses or access to civilian
If you, yes and no. So if there's not a course that's going to teach them how to do tactical CI anymore. That has passed.
Okay.
But the classes I'm naming, if an agent goes to those classes, you can implement those skill sets in a tactical environment or in a strategic
Okay.
environment, right?
Right.
Um, you can do a surveillance detection route in a Humvee without anybody knowing. You can utilize those skill sets. You just have to know how to implement them and when to implement them. And that's where the key is. This is the training I'm giving you, and this is how we're going to implement it, and this is when you
Mhm.
implement it. Um, and you can build a CI guy. If a CI guy like Pete, I'm going to send you to all these whiz bangs tactical schools. You're going to learn how to do interviews. You're going to learn how to do surveillance. You're going to learn how to do operations. You're going to learn to do surveillance detection routes and all that stuff. And you go practice that. You go exercise that in your office where you're at. And all of a sudden, okay, Pete, war broke out. We're sending you to Afghanistan. You can take that
Right.
skill set you learned and apply it in that theater. And that's how you build a tactical human person
And you
or
said
a tactical
yes and
CI.
no's. So that was the yes part. No. What's the no part? If Bert's trying to get his team plussed up, I need to get these smart. What course do you have to invent?
you as a leader has to sit there and take the knowledge that you have, develop scenarios and exercises, and train your guys. That's how
Yeah.
you're going to get on that side. The Army just
What
doesn't
if you're any
have.
damn good at the job? Like, what if you're a warrant? You're like, all I've ever done is strategic stuff, and I know the job, but I'm terrified to leave the camp. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Then it's gonna be a long tour.
I love it. Okay, so I come to you. I've got a tasking from the president to improve our TAC HUMINT people, and I'm like, hey, I can build anything with you, Burt. What do you want? How many guys do you need to pilot a program? Like, if we're going to really make good collectors, and I'm not saying super spies. I'm saying
Yeah.
guys who are warriors who can go out and find out what nobody else can find out on that patrol.
How many people were we training at one time?
I mean, I want a failure rate, right? I want some attrition through failing
Are
out
we
of the course, not
are we
because of
talking
physicality, but
are we talking a
yeah.
20-person class, a 40-person class,
Let's
100?
say a 20-person class.
A 20-person class? So that's be 10 teams. You need 10 OCs, so that's 10. You probably need a good 20 people to train those 20 people
1-to-1
because
ratio. Okay. Yeah.
you're going to pair them up, pairs of two. So you're going to have somebody overseeing them, their direct mentor as they're going through class. Then you're going to have role
Mhm.
players.
Right.
You got to have script writers, um, and then somebody directing the training itself, coordinating with local
Mhm.
authorities and things like that. So I would say about 20 people to run those courses, and you're not just going to go one a year. You're running multiple, probably one a quarter or two a quarter, depending how
Right.
long the training is. So you're going to be, turning these guys over pretty quickly, but you're going to need, people have to take leave or they're sick, so you're going to have people to fill in. So probably about 20
Sure.
people.
Okay. So you have 20 people running this course and role plays and scripting, and that stuff is very fluid. So you're always, this is for the audience, you're always rewriting
Yep.
because you want
Yep.
it, you're trying to bring something, you're trying to be in front of the agent, right? And make it hard. That's what I tried to do at SIFSO. You're like, here's my book answer, and then I would watch, like if I was role playing for you and you were the student, I'm going to stay 2 steps back so that you have to always come chase me. And then as soon
Right.
as you think you've got me, I'm going to turn to the left and you're going to
Right.
go right by, right? So that's what I need. So you need great instructors.
Yep.
You need people that are creative. Where do you do this training? Do you do it in a foreign country? Do you do it at Huachuca? Where do you go? Because here's what I know. You put a bunch of CI agents in civilian clothes and let them go run around and go to, Mimi's and go get pumpkin pie and have a source meat. The fucking Army hates it. They go crazy. They're like,
Yeah.
get those guys in uniform.
Right.
Why are they at Mimi's? Have them go to the chow hall,
I think if you can do it right, you do a combination of training. You have your sterile environment in the States, and then you send them overseas to practice what they learn. Again, coordination with host nation has to
Right.
be done,
Sure.
and but I think the best, because anybody can go to Chicago and fit in, right?
Right.
It's hard to go to, let's say, Stuttgart, Germany, and fit in, or how about Tokyo,
Yeah.
Japan, and fit in, and not look out of place when you're doing what you need to do.
Right. When you have these guys going all over the place, Stuttgart, Chicago, wherever they're going, how long is this course? Is this a resident course for like 6 months? And are they just constantly hammering away and getting this counseling that you're talking about? And is it varied? Like, do they have one mentor or is it like a team mentoring? Is it vicious? Are we cutting heads? And then I said, I want an attrition rate in this class. I want people, failing out
Oh,
or recycling,
yeah, absolutely. It's not just you have your main mentor, that's your OC, but as they're
Okay.
talking, the role players or people observing, they can give that feedback to them too. If you're going to do it right, you got to run a 4 to 6 month course, right?
Okay.
You're not going to do it in 10 weeks. You're not going to do it in 12 weeks. I can give you the basics, but if you want to
Mhm.
hammer it through and get repetition, and like you said, you know, and don't forget, as they're doing all this, what's the most important thing to a CI guy?
Mm.
We got to put it in paper, right? If it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
in a report, it didn't happen. So you have to factor in, they have to, develop routes, plans. They got to write their their contact reports, what happened during the meeting. So they're going to get a lot, right? You're talking agent course on steroids focused on one thing: collection.
Right. Okay. And just for the audience, there are, I don't know, if you go to, I mean, if you go on a patrol, you can have 5 different admin reports to write after that patrol.
Correct.
Each one could easily take over an hour, and sometimes multiple hours to write because there's just so much to do, right?
Or if you type like me with 2 fingers, it takes 6 hours.
Yeah. You have to type like this, Bert. You have to go, Turner, type that thing. That's how you type. So, okay. So we're talking to meet every 2 days. We're talking to meet a day, and they have to just nug it out, and they're working 5 days a week. Are they working 7 days a week? How hard are these guys working?
They're working hard. You're talking, give them Sunday off, right? Work 6 days a week, probably at least 12-hour days. You got to give them rest, because if you get them too exhausted, they're gonna lose focus, and you're not going to get any value out of the training. So you gotta play, try to knock off 8, 9. If they have to go 12, still get a good night's sleep, and the way you do it is you train them, right? And you have a 6-month course. So you teach, and then you do a practical exercise. You teach something, you do a practical exercise. So they can start implying what they learned, and then you culminate in one big FTX exercise at the end. Can they apply everything from A to Z they learned in this scenario in this country?
So over 6 months, 180 days, are there 100 meets?
That's probably pushing it a little bit. I mean, that's a lot of scenarios that you're running, right?
Yeah.
I think probably 50 to 60 meets.
Okay. The one of the things that we don't know, we don't study, we don't teach. I don't know that there's a course for it. Is so you set up your shop, right? You and I are at Mosul Airfield. That's where I was for a while. And you're like, open for business, right? So you have the internal walk-ins that might come, and you got to get off the camp to go find people, but you also have external walk-ins coming in. But you have to build that franchise, right? Like it doesn't just turn on, right?
No, it's like you just show up in here. Well, here, Mr. Turner, here is 3 people that work inside the building. Here are 3 people that work here. And oh, by the way, these people live in this area. They're all for you. Just ask me questions. They'll tell you anything you want to know.
So is this another course, like how to develop a vibrant CI environment where you're a node for information?
I think you can build it in, because when you're preparing them, you have to give them scenarios and how to build that source network, right? You could make it a separate course, and making sure you do your IPB intelligence preparation of the battlefield, making sure you know what demographics you have, what political affiliations you have, who are the good guys, the bad guys, right? You have to do all that preparation to get, and then figure out, okay, who's collecting on the our troops, and how can I counter their actions, right? How can I deter, exploit, or neutralize their collection attempts?
The ability to do that also means you have to build your franchise internally within the unit. And I guess we should talk about commanders now, right? Because one of the weaknesses that we have is that even intel officers, like I always tell, like when I worked at Huachuca, they asked me to show them the chat system, right? Basically chats for the audience is like a laptop, digital camera, portable printer, portable scanner, all like in a roller kind of case. And they're like, you got to show the general, you can take a picture. Now this is a long time ago. Obviously things are different now, but commanders still don't know. And I'm talking intel commanders. Like I would go to these lieutenants and captains going through OBC, the officer basic course, or the officer advanced course, OAC. And I would talk to them like, hey, where do you put a counterintelligence agent, sir or ma'am? And they would go, I don't know, buy the Turkey 32, which is actually one of the answers they said, because they didn't know, right? So how do you create the support that how do you teach an agent how to protect themselves internally so that when you do come and you say, I need special quarters, individual quarters. I need an office. It's got to be nice. And it's got to be separate, and all these demands. And the sergeant major's like, "Who are you?
Right.
I don't think so."
Yeah.
And then you know,
we're in huge trouble if we have to educate our commanders, right? We
yeah,
let alone going out and educating combat commanders.
right,
And how do you protect yourself? You go in, you make yourself useful. And what I mean useful is you show value added to the team. Because
okay,
when most commanders see us, we're coming in and it's all the CI guys. I got to feed, clothe, and house them, and they're just an extra mouth to feed, and we have more
right,
important things to worry about. What you need to do is articulate what you can do for them, show them what you can do for them. So you have to educate those commanders, and you don't go in
mm,
there and you don't want to go in there off the bat. I need special quarters, or I'm going to wear civilian clothes. You don't want to put that special guy, and you don't want to use CI talk to them, counterintelligence talk. You want to talk like they do, like Army does, in a way that you can get your point across and how CI can support their mission, and then go out
yeah,
and show them, right? Bring back reports and go, the Taliban is here in X city. Well, how do you know that? Well, we went out and talked to X, Y, and Z,
right,
and that's how we got the information. But you have to sit there. You have to pound it into them. You have to be in their hip pocket, that commander, showing them that value that you bring to them. Once you do that, they start listening to you, and they start giving you the things that you need to accomplish the mission while you're supporting them. And
I've seen a lot of units. I've seen a lot of intelligence people, and I've not seen much of that. I've seen a lot of perceptions that, hey, we've got good intel. And I'm like, yeah, but the boss never talks to you. I never hear him
yeah,
mention your intel reports. So you're working and you believe you're really doing a great thing. We've got a problem with ego in our field, Bert, where
we
we know
do,
that we're the
we do,
best, right?
right,
So, all right. I mean, you and I are trying to build a better human person. How do we deal with this thing? How do we take leaders who aren't, look, I mean, they've got PLDC, maybe BNOC under their belt, the first two steps. And let's be honest about those courses, not all that great at teaching you leadership. It's just more of like you
right,
have to go through these steps and you move on, right? So we're not building the kind of
right.
leaders that we need. They are out there, they exist, but it's hard to get them to be relevant to a commander. And I've seen
And
it. It's not the norm. It is absolutely the
it's
exception
not
to
the
have an
norm.
intel person. Right.
It's not the norm, and let's face it, not everybody's a born leader, right?
Right.
And
Right.
you have to weed them out as well. Again, it goes back to, instead of having these young agents sitting in a force comm unit,
Hmm.
order pool, or doing head count, you got to get them into an office when they're in the States and get those repetitions. How do you build somebody talking to the commander? Well, you have to go brief a commander on an investigation. You have to go brief them. There was a gate runner, and you got to brief the garrison commander. There's no threat, and this is why there's no threat. So you still can get repetition and things talking to commanders, even in the garrison field state. You don't have to be tactical to talk to those commanders. You go out there, and you have to brief them, because there are threats in the states, and you get them out there briefing the commanders, getting them comfortable how to brief the commander, not using spooky words. Not
Hmm.
going in there and saying, I'm Special Agent Whitlow. I always go to the
Yeah.
commander, even if I'm in civilian clothes. I'm CW3 Whitlow, CW2 Whitlow, Sergeant Whitlow. That I don't look special, but I'm here because I have a special mission that I can provide support to you. That's how you
Mm.
build them.
One of the things that I had to learn, it was like one of my critical steps. It gave me one of my higher belts before I got to black belt, was I had to learn to speak sergeant major. And a deployed sergeant major, man, that's a different duck because
It's
that guy doesn't have a job. His
it's a
job is to
different animal.
be in your business. And so if I ignored that dude, which was my initial, approach, that guy killed me. That guy would kill me all the time.
Yeah.
He would be in when I couldn't be in a meeting, he'd be there and be like, I don't know what that guy's doing. And
Yeah.
he would sow doubt all the time. Right.
You know what you do with those? You treat the sergeant major like a source. He's
Okay.
like your he's like your prize source, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you butter him up so much, you get him on your side, And the next thing you know, sergeant major is not going to care. And another thing is, if the sergeant major can't find you, he can't bug you, right? When I mean
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
going hiding somewhere on post, you're out doing your mission.
Yeah.
And the only time he sees you is when you're coming back through the gate, rolling back at 2,000 hours, 2,200 hours, and you're typing reports. And then the next day you're going, before you go out the gate again. Oh, by the way, here's your latest intel. I'm on my way out again. Make yourself useful.
I what I figured out that worked reliably for most of these guys is I would say, hey, I have access to everybody in your unit, and I don't want to ever be compromised, but I became their source. Like, and all I want is people to be going home okay. And so
Sure,
when I see
absolutely.
things that aren't good, like, hey, the guys in vehicle 5, they're just not wearing their helmets. I just want them to get home okay. And the sergeant would just like, I got it, and then I would be, and you didn't have to do it all the time. And I'm not trying to narc on people, but if there was, look, I legitimately was in an MRAP that had a 50 cal barrel unsecured. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, man, I don't want to be in that vehicle either. That's
No,
dangerous
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Or cases of rippets, just not like strapped down. Like, what are you guys doing? Like these things flip over. Oh my God. Anyhow, um, I want to back up a little bit because we're talking about a lot of things that exist already, right? A lot of these things and they ebb and they flow, right? That's how the
Sure.
military does things.
Yeah.
Why do we suck at this stuff if we have all these tools available? Why is it so hard to reliably say it's going to take 4 years to make a good agent? And it can't be less than 4 years. There's no way it's less than 4 years.
No. That's a damn good question.
I
um,
love good questions.
yeah, I think I honestly, I think we're getting better with it, Pete. With CI
Okay.
reform, we have CI reform where we haven't changed CI since like 1970. Um, we just stood up an Army Counterintelligence Command. We have our own one-star general now. We still have agents in the Force Com, but we're bringing them like our little brothers and sisters coming into the fold, working with us uh, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Compel 2, Compel 3, which are reserve National Guard guys as
Mhm.
well. So bringing them in, and from a Army counterintelligence command standpoint, that's how we're training these guys. That's how we're starting to
Mm.
get these people in the field and changing the mentality um, of CI, branding it. We're a command. We're not the Mickey Mouse League anymore. We're not the Bush League. We're professionalizing. We're training. We're
Love it.
mentoring, and and we're we're training. Training is huge. Not just from Pete or Burt as senior guys, but sending them to those schools that they need to build
Yeah.
their skill set, and then they can come and apply it and work it and build it. Become the Pete and Burt of the future.
One of the things that I like to ask, and it's just such a powerful exercise in terms of thinking about how you approach a thing, is who's running who, right? You've got people able to come up whenever they want to your office, and you're desperate for them to get there, and you're object fixated on them. Like, I'm going to master this person. I'm going to have this conversation. Who's running who?
Um,
How do we get better at recognizing that? How do we allow ourselves to be fallible? Like, hey, I don't know everything. I'm going to talk to this person and I'm going to make assessments. I'm going to, whatever it is, right? Bert and I are going to talk
yeah,
afterwards. We're going to try to figure out, is this guy running us? And if he is running us, awesome. Like, fuck yes. This is great.
yeah,
We're now going to flip this guy around maybe. And like, now we're playing the game. I don't think people think about that. I encountered a CI team in Koner province, right? And they were going around camp to camp, and they were lie detector testing everybody, and they were all the interpreters like we're recommending them all for termination because they all have ties to the Taliban. I'm like, you're in fucking Koner province, man. You want these people on
everybody.
the camp. Yeah, you want these
Yeah,
people on the camp, and you know what you want to do? You want to do your fucking job and start flipping these guys if you
right.
can. And you know what? They thought I
Yeah.
was crazy.
Those are the guys that need to go back to the motor pool and start doing head count, right? Because
Yeah, back to
if
force
you
com with you.
if you're not thinking about uh, exploiting, neutralizing, or what's the other one I'm looking for? But if you're not looking at denying, the enemy, exploiting the enemy,
Yeah.
or neutralizing the enemy, then you don't need to be a CI agent, right?
Mhm.
That's what we do. We need to make it harder for the enemy to operate in our battle space. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And as we get more, and we need to be more proactive in getting to the unoccupied battle space getting in there, getting our source networks up, getting our snitches running to make it difficult for the enemy to come in and collect on us. So if somebody's just using a PCAS system to say everybody's lying, that's not being that's a lazy guy that doesn't know anything about the job.
Yeah. We recommend all interpreters for termination. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks,
You
man. You're
can't.
not
Yeah.
helping.
And we know going in there bad ones, yes. Are there good ones? Yeah. Are they in between? They don't know. Are they playing both
Yeah.
sides? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes the situation dictates you got to take what you get, right?
Yeah.
To function. Because that's one thing I don't think the Army stresses enough, having enough internal linguists to accomplish the mission if we go forward. And we have to rely on foreign speakers, either U.S. U.S. citizens now, or
Mm-hmm.
local nationals as we come in.
I want to get into interpreters in a minute, but one of the things we're talking about now is the ability to go into an area and understand how to meet people, right? So we talked about people coming to the camp and going out there, but I need. Look, if we're going to build this thing, and I'm working for the president trying to improve it, I'm going to be bugging you like, hey, listen, we're going to have to withstand some heads getting chopped off. These are warriors, and sometimes they're going to get compromised, and it is a deadly game. And I would say, gosh, and this is horrible, we don't lose enough agents in the field if we're really playing this game in a non-permissive environment.
No, I mean nobody wants to, and I don't think you're ever going to find a commander to take that type of risk. Just for the simple fact that you don't want to send young sons and daughters home in body bags, right?
Right.
You got to
Right.
be smart about it. Um,
But we're
in a
not at
non
Fort Riley either, though,
No, we're not at Fort Riley. No, in a non-proficient, again, a non-permissive TD, there's no way to train somebody to operate in that environment, right?
Yeah.
It's you got to rely on the skills that you have learned over the years. The training, the reps you've taken in a permissive environment, and be smart about it. How am I going to set up my collection platform and do it safely so I don't have to write a letter to some mother
Yeah.
or father about their children. Um, I I would say that you don't want to be a fob rat. You have to get out there. But I did it in you did it in Iraq. I did it in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. So we know that there's ways to go about your aggressive to a point, but safety is always paramount as well. You got to balance that mission
Right.
analysis, risk versus gain type of thing.
Is that its own course then? Like, how do I, because it's such a unique thing, Bert, right? To be, look, I'll just be honest about this. There are occasions, and I'm doing this as a black belt. I know I'm good at this job. And so I've assessed the risk. And so when the Afghan leader comes to me and says, hey, come to my house for dinner. I want to talk to you about some things, and I really can't do it here at the office. I'm trying to figure out how to say yes to that. And I'm like, hey,
Absolutely,
how am I going to be safe? Right. And he's like, you're going to be
absolutely,
safe because you're with me and my people.
right.
And so, and then this actually happens. I go to the battle captain because I don't want the battle captain caught unaware, but I also don't want to tell the battle captain. So he's like, you absolutely can't do that. Right. And so I say to him, if there was someone American going off the camp, they're excellent at what they do, and they're able to go out and meet with people that no one else can meet with in a way that no one else can. Would you want to know about that? And we kind of talked in this coded way. And he's like, I don't want to know about that, but I want them to have a radio and a call sign. And if at all possible, a grid so that I could take, and so
Right,
that's the dance that we had to do. And again, I'm a black belt doing this, right?
right.
So it's and we also, and I'll say this and I'm going to shut up and let you talk about it. We also overprotect, right? So I know the force needs a lot of protection. I do not. I don't need as much. Now I need to be qualified to say that. I need to
Right.
check my ego and my answers with you or somebody else and say, this is what I think I'm going to do. But we don't have that reliably built into our agents.
Right. We don't. And again, that I don't think there's a course that could teach you that. That
Okay.
or could. I guess you can learn it. You can go through some classes, but executing that is a different story because everything again in a controlled environment. I can be a
Yeah.
superstar. When the one
Mm-hmm.
bullet, I hear one bullet, I'm losing my mind and I can't think straight. Right.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and and it's like we sign up. We know we have a job. We know we have a job in the continental United States, we have a job in the Oconus, and then we have a job in the combat environment.
Right.
And we don't ask infantry guys not to go do something because it's dangerous. It's
Right.
part of their job. They have an objective, but they're going to plan out, right? They have they have a mission planning. They brief it, and then they go execute it. And I think that's the same way that as we're working in a permissive area, you have that person that says, "Hey, come over to my house. No, nothing's going to happen to you because you're at my house."
Right.
And you mission plan. So I go in there. I have probably a couple extra mags. I got to probably have a M4 instead of just my pistol. I
Mhm.
bring 3 or 4 more people than I normally would for perimeter. Start internal and work your way out. Right. You have your perimeter security in the meeting area. Then you have a couple extra guys outside watching the outside exterior, and then you coordinate with the combatant commander and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it."
Yeah.
You sell it to them and say, for safety purposes or for what we need to accomplish the mission, I need a QRF at grid square XYZ." And then you brief it where you've taken steps to try to reduce or minimize the risk that you are taking. And this is how we're doing it. This is step 1. This is step 2, and this is step 3. And that's our course of action, how we're going to accomplish a mission. We will be there. We'll be no longer than 2.5 hours or 2 hours. We'll have radio contact every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. And you doing it on doing a meeting is not doing that. That's why you have an extra guy in the back, every 15 minutes doing a radio check. Everything's good, and it's making people get the warm and fuzzy. So you can train people to, again, send them to school and think through the process, right? Risk mitigation and things like that. But can they actually apply it when the bullets are flying? When the rubber meets the road?
Right. Yeah. Well, and then the thing I want to say back to that is when I did this, I had built trust, and I had been handed trust. I had built a lot of trust with these people, and so they didn't want combat dudes there. They wanted Pete there. They wanted my buddy Rich, and so we are really putting our safety in their hands. We weren't being flippant about it. Obviously, anything can happen, but we said this is the risk to going. It's our opportunity to do this. And a lot of times the Army does hold us back, right? I need to be away from the camp. And as well as I do, like if we go to a place that's like when we drove through Hungary, they're like, don't leave the road because there's mines everywhere. Like, no, we're in Hungary. We're in Hungary, And then all of the people that had to do all this extra stuff, wearing body armor in Bosnia or whatever it's going to be, all these extra steps we take, we need to really, I think, push back from that and accept that there's going to be some risk, work on the experience part. But I think we sell ourselves short in terms of what the access that we need to create, the trust we have to build. And I'm all about trust. Like that's my machine, where if I can build trust with these people, I can build a network, and they'll introduce me within their network, and I will meet people that nobody else can meet.
Right.
But I got to leave the camp.
Yep.
So it's a different animal, and maybe nobody else needs to do it the way I did it, but I don't know that we are good at I don't know, man. We struggle with this stuff. We struggle with the ability to go and meet those people 4 rings out in our network.
We do. And you build trust with your tier 1 to get to tier 4. I agree with that.
Right.
But you can't become complacent, right? You can't fall in love with somebody. That's some of the biggest mistakes that we've made in history, looking at how handlers have been killed, blown up or captured, right? So one is, don't ever be complacent. Those guys aren't your friends. They're a commodity that you need to get your job done, and there's a commodity to stay alive. That's why they're talking to you, right? So they don't get blown up, probably.
Right.
But I think we acquiesce from a CI standpoint too much. When somebody says you have to have 4 vehicles, body armor on, you have to, have 30 people with you, we go, okay. And we don't fight back, and we don't articulate why that hinders our ability to provide better intelligence, right?
And also that goes back to that relevance to the commander. Does the
Yep.
commander like, wait, you really need that? That's what you need? Like, hey, man, I know it's a weight on your back, but if you can free me up a little bit. We had these KTMs on the fence line in Afghanistan that the Afghans weren't using. And we're like, can we just have those? And like our biggest problem was access to the battlefield. And we had a
Right.
lot of access, but we needed more all the time. And just give us a couple of Afghans and a couple of Americans and we'll go right around town and like,
Yeah.
well, I probably need to scribe too. Like, can you just write everything that's happening and then, but that access though, I mean, it's a big thing. I'm glad that's why we spent a lot of time on it. You were talking about linguists earlier, and this is probably my biggest area where I know we are not good enough. Not You can't learn enough languages. It takes too long to develop proficiency. But what we can do is have, and I'm going to say 3 resident courses and they stack, right? And so you can become an expert in using an interpreter. So there is the interpreter course. So that an interpreter learns more than just like the stupid basic stuff. There's a course for the agent who learns how to work an interpreter, and not from a point of no trust. You're training any interpreter you encounter, whether they're an American or they're a local, you're training them. This is what I want. And ultimately, if you build trust with this person, they should be running most of the meeting because they have knowledge. They know what you're going for and how to ask the questions, and you've worked with them so that they improve your ability to communicate, and the language becomes secondary because this person's doing cultural things as well. I know that's kind of bold to say that. And then the course above that is interpreter and agent ops. And can you go out and reliably execute the things that you learned in the lower levels? That's kind of how I envision this thing. And again, it's risky, but I think we have to be more comfortable with risk in our field.
I agree, and I agree to a point with you. Uh, where you lose me on is where the Terp should be running the meeting, right? We
I shouldn't say running. I should
Yeah.
say they are doing the bulk of the talking, and you should
Yes.
have the
Yes.
ability to understand a lot of. So if my interpreter, I always told him, if you hear something and you're going to go, just push me off to the side and go get it. But I worked with them. This wasn't on day one, Bert, right? This is
Right.
like
Yep.
well in, like, this is what I want you to do. And the leash was not as long on locals. And I worked a lot on my basic vocabulary. So I'm like, is he talking about the things I think he's talking about? So there was some proficiency there, right? But
Right.
we don't even train on that. We say, don't trust the interpreter. I'm like, this is an American. I can
Yeah.
trust this guy. His favorite team are the Jaguars.
I mean,
It's the same stupid fucking film. Yes.
he's a cat too. He has a secret clearance. If he's a cat 3, he has a TS clearance. If I
Right,
can't trust a
right,
U.S. citizen with a security clearance, you have to trust him.
right.
But and I've seen it happen. When I was in Ukraine, where I had a cat 2 interpreter, and she was talking, and I just happened to have another person with me that spoke Ukrainian. Um, the thing you have to try to avoid and understand, if there's a conversation going on for 5 minutes and all of a sudden she turns around and says, he said that everything's fine. No, that didn't take
Yeah, yeah,
five
no,
minutes to
not
tell
that.
you, right?
Yeah, right,
Right.
right,
So you have to be conscious of what's going on during the meeting. You're asking the questions, and the interpreter, because you want to run your agenda, right? And
right,
you talk, and you're right. People don't know that you should go with your interpreter. Go into, before you leave wherever you're going. Go over the agenda. What you're looking for.
right.
How the meeting's structured, right?
Yeah,
And we're going to go ask A, B, C, and D. Are you comfortable with these? Do you know the terminology for, because even if they're native speaker, some of them don't know military terms or
right,
scientific terms or things like that. So you want to make sure they understand what you're going to be asking and how and the terminology to use in native language, um, and then get their feelings right, because they, like you said, they have the culture. They know how people act, right? How they're supposed to be
hmm,
act. And they can come and say, this wasn't right for, his mannerisms were off. And I agree with you. We have to learn how to use interpreters uh, as just like they're our partner, right? Not
right,
just like a extra piece to the team, a strap hanger. They're an inner part of your team and how you operate and getting the
right.
information. So I agree with you. There should be some classes how to use your interpreter in situations that you're going to face.
One of the most powerful things that I was able to do was have that person, like I would have my questions and in my order, and they would say, "Hey, can I ask this in a different way?" And that's not how we're training our interpreters. That's not how we train our agents. The
Yeah,
answer is no. You ask it the way, like they're just a talking machine, right? And so we
right,
have to get past that perception that this is a talking machine who says only what I say, exactly how I say it, because we frankly haven't earned the right to have that conversation with that Iraqi general, whoever it is. We don't know enough about their culture and their people, and this person is now left to try. I have to, like, and you know how it is, like when we get questions written for us and we hate it, we're like, these are the worst fucking questions ever. I'm not asking these questions. I'll ask them in my own way, right? We literally do that all the time,
right.
but we don't allow interpreters to do it.
No, exactly. And when people go in there, use an interpreter is not an interrogation, right? Because that's not the intent of our meeting.
Right.
So you go in there and you act just like you and I are talking right now, Pete, right? If I need an interpreter right next to me, I would say something just like I am now. Stop, let the interpreter um,
Right.
translate, you answer, and if you have a good one, they can talk and translate. They can they're telling you what you're saying, what I'm saying, and they're pretty good at it. And that's how it
Yeah.
should be done. Not like, what is your name? What do you do? Where do you live?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
have a normal conversation like you and I are having right now. And if you prepare your interpreter and you prepare your meetings like that, it works out the best.
Yeah, for sure. And that ability for that interpreter to say, "Hey, Pete, this guy seems nervous." That will now
Yes.
give me a clue that I may not pick up on. I mean, you think about like
Yep.
someone, if I'm going to talk to someone from San Francisco or someone from Florida, they're different people, they're different cultures. Just, and
Yep.
I can probably navigate those things, but I can't do that for Basra and Baghdad. Like I have no
Right.
clue, like I'm
Exactly.
just, I'm like literally an idiot. We can't afford to be idiots out there. We've got to
Yeah.
know that, like, hey, I don't know this. I need to get smart. I need to get someone who can help me do it, because then look out. I'll kick anybody's ass if I've got a good interpreter, and I can teach them how to be part me. Then it's just game over.
Yeah. And I think part of the biggest problem we have across uh, some older agents, some of the younger agents is you're you're going up against, let's say, Iraqi intelligence, right? If you don't know their TTP, how can you go and formulate any type of collection or operation
Right.
if you don't know how they operate? Because if you don't know how they operate, you're not going to recognize that they're running something against you. So know your enemy, know how they operate, and then
Yeah.
as we're going in and for peacekeeping, know the culture. What's offensive to them, right? Uh, you know, certain ticks they have that we would think
Yeah.
people are lying to us or it's threatening, but it's normal to them. You
Right.
have to know your environment, know what you're going to
Mhm.
do and who you're doing it with. That's the biggest key. People just go out there and like they did. They sent us to Bosnia. We didn't know shit about Bosnia, right? We just went in
Right.
and we started learning as we went. We're building the airplane in flight, as people say. So um, if we would have had time to study and learn, I think we would have been better off. I think it was. I think we were a- as that year that we did when we first initially went in. I think the 165th did a hell of a job in
Yeah.
certain areas. Teams just knocked it out of the park
Yeah.
and educated those combatant commanders what we could do for them.
Mm.
I think we did a good job at that.
Yeah. Our area, I would say, as far as we could tell, was active, but there was really very little threat there. That's a win for the
Yeah,
commander to know that. Like, hey, here, this area, we're not seeing any problems. Good. Continue to monitor, continue to meet people, continue to do that. You're doing your job. It doesn't have to be nefarious activity. By the way,
right. Oh,
criminality,
absolutely.
none of our business. Like, hey,
Yeah,
that's great. You're selling illegal gas. Awesome. I'll take some
yeah,
illegal gas. Like, I don't care, right? You're selling weed, but who cares? I don't care
yeah.
about that. I just want to know what's going on, and if I can find those things out. But the military doesn't like that. They don't like that, like think any violence belongs to them. And it's just not true.
No, and that's where you. again, that goes back to, so I'll give you an example. I was
Mm,
in Srebrenica, um, and if people don't know, that's it was a Muslim community, and then during the war, the Serbs came in, um, massacred a lot of the Muslim Bosnian Muslims that were living there, and so
mhm,
somebody decided it was a good idea to reintegrate Bosnian Muslims into the community of 100% all Serbs, and then go visit the cemeteries and things like that. So I was there weeks ahead of time, knowing this event was coming. I was
yeah,
I was talking to people, talking to all the people I knew, getting a gauge, of what's going on. What is the temperature of the people in this village, and what could I expect when the U.S. rolled in with all these armored vehicles and Bosnian Muslims coming in buses. The day of, the commander of the unit is on the ground, and I'm briefing him as he's looking around, and I'm telling him, "You're going to get some demonstrations. You're going to have a lot of people yelling at you.
mhm.
Just ignore them. Don't keep the soldiers. Don't do anything um, hostile towards them. Don't raise your
Right.
weapons to them. Don't push them, because all they're trying to do is entice a reaction. Because if one troublemaker, and I go, that's the troublemaker. We'll keep his eye. We have him. Don't worry about him. We will make sure he doesn't cause any trouble. But
Yeah.
he's looking for you to push somebody else so he can bring his goons
Mm,
in and start a big riot. And the commander, thankfully listened to me, and I was giving him updates. And he goes, "Where are you going to be, Chief?" And I'm going, "I'm going to be in the crowd, sir. That's my job.
that's my
I'm
job.
going to keep,
That's my job. Yeah.
and my job is to make sure that the most up-to-date intelligence that's going on right now in this place." So it went out with a how to hitch. He came up to me, "Hey, thanks, Chief. Appreciate all the advice you were giving us." So we right after that point, we could do anything we wanted within that commander,
Right.
because he trusted us. He knew exactly what we did. We did our job professionally, and we provided a service to him to protect his troops. So after at that day, we were golden.
Yeah, man. When you come through for the commander with something that they don't have and they can't get from anywhere else, it's that it is not just golden. That's what I think. Like this is a golden nugget right here. And as soon as I find that, like, oh, there's a vein, I just that all my attention goes to that hunk of gold until I
Right.
can get it all sorted out. Right. It's powerful. There are so many things to talk about with this, and I know we've done an hour, so I don't want to take any more of your time, but we've covered a lot of ground. What else is out there where you're like, man, I wish we could wrap our hands around this? And I know, like, look, there's a lot of things that we do well, right? But we're trying to improve these things. And there are so many things that seem pretty obvious that we should be better at. What stands out for you? What's the fix?
Fix. I think the fix is, um, I think what stands out to me is making sure we professionalize the counterintelligence field, right?
Okay.
Continue to grow our professionals, and the fixes is what we're aiming at, and it's phase one, and continue is having that Army counterintelligence command, having our 1 star, having that officer know exactly what we do, how we operate,
Mm,
and
hmm.
be in our corner to advocate for us moving forward. Um, uh, getting the authorities that we need, getting uh, authorities pushed down to lower levels where we don't have to go to the ENSCOM commander
Right.
for a signature to do X, like an operation
Hmm.
or an investigation. Put that at the lowest level in the regions, because we separated into regions now. We have 4 regions throughout the United States. So
Right.
there's a uh, region command director in each region. So power down some of those authorities to the region where we can get after, be more agile, flexible, and professional as we move forward. And I think we're moving in the right
Mhm.
direction, and I hope we continue to do that. And I think the first step was a great step, is forming that Army Counterintelligence Command and having that one
Love it.
star in charge.
Spoken like a true professional, man. I appreciate you doing it. Let me wrap this thing up. I love it that we get the chance to do this. It's so much fun. Stand by.
Hey,
Yeah,
thanks
I
for watching the
appreciate it.
show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much.